The Grizzlies' unthinkable betrayal, why Desmond Bane was really traded, and what it means for Ja Morant's future. What in the world did we just witness with the Desmond Bane trade? When the news broke, initial reports screaming about 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane sent shockwaves through the NBA, instantly labeled as a wild, almost irrational overpay. But here's the truly mind-boggling part. It was even crazier than that. Memphis actually gave up control of 5 first-round picks. And believe me, that isn't even the most unsettling detail of this entire bewildering saga. The immediate jarring question that ripped through the league was, what in the name of basketball are the Memphis Grizzlies doing? Teams simply don't trade one of their undisputed top 3 players, especially a young, ascending talent like Bane, unless they're embarking on a full-scale, painful rebuild. But how in the world can a team with an electrifying, generational talent like Ja Morant, a perennial all-star, possibly be rebuilding? The answer, at least on the surface, is they're not. They simply can't be, unless something absolutely massive, something far more sinister than a simple trade, is about to unfold. The cold, hard details of this bombshell trade saw the Orlando Magic acquire Desmond Bane. In return, the Grizzlies received a substantial, albeit complex, haul. Cole Anthony, veteran shooting guard Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, the 16th pick in the upcoming 2025 NBA draft, a valuable 2026 first-round pick, which, crucial for trade value, is most likely coming from the Phoenix Suns, 2 completely unprotected first-round picks directly from Orlando in future years, and a top 2 protected pick swap, also from Orlando. Now, that's a lot of assets to unpack, and of course, the immediate hopeful thought for any Memphis fan was, this must be the precursor to another, even bigger blockbuster for the Grizzlies, right? Maybe they'll leverage all these shiny new picks and tradable contracts to land another immediate impact player, or even multiple players, transforming their roster overnight. But there's a deeply concerning, almost ignored reason why that optimistic scenario is highly, tragically unlikely, and we'll dive into that in just a moment. First, let's talk about the team on the other side of this unprecedented deal, the Orlando Magic. Many, especially those who only glanced at the headline, immediately labeled this an egregious overpay for the Magic. But let's engage with reality for a second. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, while a solid veteran, just wrapped up his worst statistical season in years. And Cole Anthony, while a capable scorer off the bench, is firmly in the okay but not essential category. The true value Orlando acquired, the real currency in this deal, was the picks, yes, but more importantly, the player those picks brought in. Because, as we've seen in the modern NBA, the value of draft picks has spiraled wildly out of control. Think back to that seismic 2019 trade that sent Paul George to the Los Angeles Clippers for a staggering control of 7 first-round picks and a then unproven Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That deal fundamentally reset the market. Fast forward to today, and even high-end role players come with the King's ransom attached. Just look at the recent Mikal Bridges trade to the Knicks, which cost them 5 first-round picks. So when you truly analyze it, 5 picks for a player of Desmond Bane's caliber, a proven elite shooter and defender, is actually the new market rate, not some absurd overpay. Unless, of course, your name is Nico Harrison. Then you're apparently trading away a generational talent like Luka Doncic for mere pennies on the dollar. But that's a baffling conversation for another video entirely. Among those picks, only the number 16 selection this year and that crucial 2026 pick from Phoenix carry significant immediate value. The others, Orlando's unprotected picks in later years, they could very well turn into absolute garbage. And the Magic, clearly, are betting on that. They're feeling their win-now window opening right now. So why would they care about their own draft picks in 2028, 2029, and 2030? They fully expect to be deep into the playoffs, maybe even contending by then. Ultimately, I absolutely love this trade for the Magic, if for no other reason than this. Their agonizing, soul-crushing rebuild is unequivocally over. And if you're a Magic fan, that must be an incredibly liberating, exhilarating feeling. For years, they've been stuck in basketball purgatory, cycling through eras of painful mediocrity with names like Nikola Vucevic and Aaron Gordon, consistently making the playoffs, only to be summarily dispatched in the first round. Then came the years of painstaking, often embarrassing rebuilding. But now, they're all in. No more hoarding draft picks, no more patiently developing young talent in obscurity. This is it. Orlando is making a definitive, bold statement. They want us all to see them as legitimate contenders in the Eastern Conference, right alongside the Celtics, Pacers, Cavaliers, and Knicks. And they executed this trade for a very specific, undeniable reason that goes beyond mere ambition. Last season, the Orlando Magic were dead last in the entire NBA in both three-point makes and an abysmal three-point percentage. It was painful to watch them brick wide-open looks, stifling their own offense. Desmond Bane, incredibly, is not just a good shooter. He is the best shooter in Grizzlies franchise history. I know that sounds absolutely insane, given some of the names who have worn that jersey, but it's the undeniable truth. If you filter out his rookie year, where he was still finding his NBA rhythm, Bane has attempted a remarkable 7 three-pointers per game and converted them at an astonishing 41% clip. Do you know how many other players in NBA history, across any era, can boast a career stat line like that, combining such high volume with such elite efficiency? Only 2. Their names are Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. No joke. That puts Bane's shooting prowess in truly elite company, a foundational skill that Orlando desperately lacked. So, Bane is an extraordinary, almost perfect fit for the Magic. He'll instantly, dramatically space the floor, opening up vast driving lanes for their dynamic young forwards, Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, allowing them to operate with far more freedom and attack the rim relentlessly. And his arrival allows Jalen Suggs to truly hone his elite defensive prowess without the undue pressure of being a primary offensive initiator, which will in turn naturally boost his offensive game as opposing defenses are forced to commit attention and resources to Bane. People were clamoring for the Magic to get someone like Trae Young. Remember all those widespread whispers and rumors? Are you kidding me? While Young is a supreme offensive talent, at least Bane possesses a genuine fighting chance on defense, a critical component for Orlando's identity. And he might just be one of the most underrated leaders and stabilizing presences in the entire league, a quality often overlooked when chasing pure offensive stars. So, with all that undeniable value, all that perfect fit for Orlando, why in the world would Memphis give up on such a valuable homegrown asset, a player who embodied their grit and grind 2.0 identity? That, truly, is the baffling central question. The Grizzlies unearthed Desmond Bane with the very last pick of the first round in the 2020 NBA Draft. It must have felt incredibly rewarding, a true testament to their scouting and player development, to witness him blossom from an overlooked prospect into a legitimate star, making their front office look like absolute geniuses. And through the years, every time Ja Morant found himself sidelined, whether due to injury or suspension, Bane was right there. He consistently stepped into the void, picking up the slack, becoming the team's go-to scorer, showcasing his undeniable leadership and clutch play. There were stretches where he single-handedly carried their offense, keeping them afloat. But the Grizzlies' front office, behind closed doors, clearly concluded that the triumvirate of Ja, Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. had, despite its flashes of brilliance, finally reached its absolute ceiling. And honestly, when you look at their playoff struggles, particularly their unceremonious exit against the Lakers, it's hard to argue they were truly a championship contender as constructed. Furthermore, and this is crucial in the modern NBA, the new collective bargaining agreement, with its stricter luxury tax thresholds and increasingly punitive repeater tax penalties, while talented, had hit a wall, both on the court and on the balance sheet. This wasn't just about winning, it was about financial flexibility and long-term sustainability in a new, harsher economic landscape. So, with Bane gone, what happens to Memphis? The immediate consequence is undeniable. Memphis is demonstrably, unequivocally worse than they were last year. And let's not forget, they already endured a deeply disappointing season, culminating in a humiliating sweep in the first round. This simply absolutely cannot be the final move they make this offseason. Back before this current restrictive CBA, we would have instantly assumed Memphis was aggressively pursuing another superstar, leveraging all these newly acquired picks. But a subtle yet profound shift is occurring across the league. I believe the Grizzlies instead want to surround Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. with more flexible, complementary depth. We saw a glimpse of this new philosophy with the emergence of Jalen Wells, who had an awesome rookie year and is now poised to step into a bigger, potentially more offensive role. You only have to look at the two teams battling it out in the NBA Finals right now and realize the super team era, the age of collecting 3 or 4 megastars, might truly be on its last breath. The championship contenders are built on deep rosters, defensive versatility, and specialized role players. So, it makes a certain kind of perverse sense for Memphis to acquire quality role players and future draft capital instead of desperately chasing another high-priced star. But this brings us to an even bigger, more unsettling question, one whispered in hushed tones around the league. Are Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. even a core worth building around in this new NBA landscape? Their individual brilliance is unquestionable, but their fit, their defensive deficiencies together, Ja's reliance on driving, and Jameer's consistent foul issues all raise significant concerns about their viability as a top-tier duo in a hyper-competitive Western Conference. Despite the obvious implications of the Bane trade, the Grizzlies' public relations machine immediately went to work. Reports quickly leaked to ESPN sources stated that more star trades were not expected, specifically emphasizing that Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. were considered untouchable franchise cornerstones. But let's be real, that temporary stability for Ja Morant is incredibly fragile, and the underlying issues around him persist. Consider this bombshell. Ja just fired his agent. Don't just gloss over that. Don't just gloss over that. What does such a drastic move signal? It's a clear, undeniable sign of deep unhappiness, frustration with his current situation, perhaps with the team's direction, or even with his representation's handling of his tumultuous career. And despite the untouchable claims, there's always the deadline caveat. What if Memphis struggles? What if they're floundering near the trade deadline again? How quickly could that narrative shift for Ja? It would be absolutely insane for them to trade Ja Morant, a former MVP candidate, but let's delve into the internal logic that might, just might, lead Memphis down that unthinkable path. Look back to the previous trade deadline, when they surprisingly dealt veteran Marcus Smart. At the time, the logic seemed sound. Smart brought much-needed leadership and created salary cap flexibility to eventually sign Jaren Jackson Jr. to his max extension. At that point, they were flying high, a dominant 35-16, sitting comfortably as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. But then, the wheels spectacularly fell off. After the Smart trade, they imploded, closing out the season with an abysmal 13-18 record, plummeting all the way to the number 8 seed. Then they fired their head coach and were utterly uncompetitive against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the play-in. This sequence of events, this dramatic, humiliating collapse, must have triggered a profound aha moment within the Grizzlies front office. The realization, who are we kidding? We are not fine in the West anymore. We had our little run, those glorious back-to-back 2 seeds, but it's over. We have been going backwards for years, not forwards. And against what is now unequivocally the cream of the West, the true test in the conference, OKC, they weren't even competitive. They simply had to do something seismic. Then came that call from the Orlando Magic, and the offer for Bane was simply too good, too enticing, too strategically compelling to decline. So they pulled the trigger, setting the stage for what might come next. But dealing Ja Morant, if it ever came to that, would be far more challenging than many fans realize. Because, and this is the uncomfortable truth in today's NBA, injury-prone point guards who prioritize highlight reel offense over consistent defensive effort, whose long-range shooting remains a significant question mark, and who have faced repeated, high-profile off-court controversies, are simply far less valuable than they used to be. This isn't the 90s, where pure athleticism, explosive drives, and highlight dunks could overshadow other deficiencies. Today's league demands a more complete, reliable, and durable superstar, especially at the point guard position, where consistent three-point shooting and defensive engagement are paramount. Odd position, where consistent three-point shooting and defensive engagement are paramount. Still, odds for Ja's potential next team have already begun to surface, with the Toronto Raptors surprisingly leading the way at plus 400, followed by the Sacramento Kings, Brooklyn Nets, Miami Heat, and Portland Trail Blazers. What do all of these teams have in common? They are all somewhat desperate franchises that need a dynamic young star like Ja to elevate them to the next level, to inject excitement and a true offensive punch. It's actually surprising that the Chicago Bulls aren't listed there, given their perpetual search for a franchise cornerstone. But the crucial point to remember for any team looking to acquire him is this: Ja, despite his undeniable talent, is not going to command the massive haul that a typical young, ascending superstar would, precisely because of these various, well-documented concerns that have plagued his career. Jaren Jackson Jr., on the other hand, presents a stark contrast. He will command a superstar-level haul in a trade. Why? Because while he's undoubtedly looking for a max extension in the near future, he currently makes just $23.6 million this season, which is an incredibly palatable, easily tradable contract for almost any team. Offensively, he shoots threes at an elite level for a big man, stretching the floor and opening up the paint, which means he seamlessly fits into almost any modern NBA roster construction. And defensively, his impact is undeniable. He's a former Defensive Player of the Year, a prolific shot blocker, and a versatile defender who can guard multiple positions. The only real concerns surrounding him are his injury history, which has seen him miss significant time, and his frustrating tendency to get into foul trouble. But despite those minor issues, virtually every team in the league will be lining up with enticing offers for a chance to acquire Jaren Jackson Jr. So, where does that leave the Grizzlies? Now, I'm not definitively saying the Grizzlies are gearing up for a full-blown, painful rebuild. But here's the harsh truth. Even if they manage to retain both Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant, they might simply suck next year anyway. Just consider the absolutely brutal landscape of the Western Conference right now. You have the dominant, ascending Oklahoma City Thunder, the San Antonio Spurs, who, with Victor Wembanyama, will undoubtedly be formidable next year, and the Houston Rockets, who have made significant veteran additions. There are the established veteran powerhouses like the Los Angeles Lakers, the Golden State Warriors, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, all of whom are incredibly dangerous and locked into contention. Do you truly believe a team potentially built around only 50 games of an often injured, sometimes suspended Ja Morant next year is going to dominate that gauntlet? This shocking trade of Desmond Bane, therefore, could be the perfect, albeit painful time for Memphis to strategically bottom out, to embark on a subtle tank. Why now? Because there's a truly stacked, potentially generational 2026 NBA draft class looming next year, featuring multiple highly touted prospects and deep lottery talent. This would be a painful short-term play, but potentially a brilliant, franchise-altering long-term move. Sham Charania might just be right about this being the craziest offseason ever. This Desmond Bane situation, a shocking blockbuster in its own right, has already rocked the league. And it happened even before the much anticipated Kevin Durant trade finally gets done, which promises to be another earth-shattering move. But perhaps the biggest shoe yet to drop, the one that could truly reshape the entire NBA landscape, involves Giannis Antetokounmpo. The reigning MVP has been relentlessly trolling people on social media over his potential trade for the past week or so, posting cryptic messages and playfully hinting at his future, fueling the speculation. Will he finally ask out of Milwaukee, or will he shockingly choose to stay, once again pledging his loyalty? Lately, things have gotten really weird.